Lone Star Cowboys podcast. I'm stepping away from the Emmys to record this. A little bit earlier today out at AT&T Stadium, the Cowboys get the win over the Giants. 40-37 in overtime, proving that Brandon Aubrey is the most valuable player in the NFL. Saad Youssef is here. We will be hearing from John Machota shortly. Kent Garrison is here as always as well. Saad, if you're making a headline for this thing, what would be your lead story?
The complete opposite vibe of last week, where last week you lost the game, but you came out feeling pretty good. This week, I think you come out, you won the game, but there's concerns. I mean, there's concerns defensively for the first thing. You can't give up 37 points to this Giants team, and then make Russell Wilson look just like he's in his prime. And honestly, not even just in his prime, but the best version of him in his prime. I believe he set a career high in passing yards today. And I know we had an overtime period and everything, but still, I mean, it's just unacceptable the way that the defense played in particular. And just my thoughts at the end of the regulation period, I just couldn't help but think about Matt Eberflus and, the Hail Mary last year against the Commanders. And they were in that situation where it wasn't quite a Hail Mary. I mean, it was a design play, but that deep ball to Malik Neighbors, you can't have that completed. It can't happen. So overall, you got the win, but I don't know that you're feeling super great about it.
I do wonder how much the Deron Bland injury might have changed how they wanted to play things today. But again, like you said, too many wide receivers just getting free releases to run downfield and go make plays, and just tons of zone. And then if it's going to be like that all the time, teams are going to get used to that and understand how to beat it. I think some of the best defenses in the league we see are teams that are able to mix it up. And they may have their tendencies, and they might like playing a little more man or might like playing a little more zone. But it's been very clear early on that they're not wanting to throw a lot of more people at the pass rush, and just kind of it is frustrating. And that's how you end up with a 21 play, 110-yard drive to start the game. It's the most insane opening drive I've ever seen. I mean, this is nuts. Your main character in this story is probably James Hudson and his 4 penalties at left tackle for the Giants, 2 personal fouls. And the Cowboys just kind of, bend and don't break, which feels like that's the way Eberflus is going to want to play. Bend, don't break. That means you're going to be giving up a lot of yards to guys like Russell Wilson if you're going to play that way all year long.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And some of the plays, especially some of those heaves that Russell Wilson had, I hate to, I know Cowboys fans don't want to hear this and they want to move past everything, but I can't help but think if Micah Parsons was here and if you had a little bit of a faster pass rush to get to Russell Wilson and disrupt things, how differently that would look. But look, I'm not here to be all doom and gloom though about the Cowboys. I think there was a lot of good. I think George Pickens had a hell of a first home game for the Cowboys. He drew 2 pass interferences. He had some big catches, including the touchdown at the end. He also the offensive pass interference was a little ticky-tacky, but overall, I thought he played really well. And Javonte Williams, I mean, we've had concerns about this running game for the past couple of years now, and I think Javonte Williams has kind of shown that he's capable of being, at minimum, a low-end number 1 running back in the NFL, which is not a bad thing when you have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and the highest paid quarterback, as Jerry would like to remind you, and a tight end who can catch. You don't need Saquon Barkley at running back, but Javonte Williams is showing through 2 games that he's capable of being an RB1.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's like that's something that, I don't know, as a guy who liked Javonte Williams in college, it was kind of like I had higher expectations for the running game than I think a lot of people did, just because of what we ran out there last year. Now, if we could get Jaden Blue active and confident and the coaching staff confident in him, I think that would be a big boost. I want to go back to something you said about Micah, because I do know everyone wants to move on, but let's be honest, the month of September will feature more Micah talk because week 4 is Packers and Cowboys. But like, one thing, that Jerry said after the game is that they've completed the deal with Jadeveon Clowney. And I think that's another body to throw out there. I don't know what the expectations would be. I really don't know what to say there, but that's one thing that Micah does that might not show up. And it's definitely not going to be a talking point from the team when they're in spin mode on the trade. But like Dante Fowler and Sam Williams are better players when Micah is there. And that's something that I think we're counting on right now. Kind of Sam Williams to maybe be your best pass rusher. You're hoping Ezerike can maybe be that guy. That's a lot to ask of a rookie. Houston's getting a lot of snaps. So I mean, I think that's a big thing that we have to just remember that's always there. Like that elevation of those lower tiered players when Micah leaves is a real thing. But also, we were told they were going to scheme it up, and they were not scheming up a lot of blitzes and things like that. And when they did, much like in the Eagles game, good things did happen. So I do think there's something there where you can go. It's early. It's week 2. We have a long way to go. You never apologize for getting a victory in this league. It just feels weird when it's the Giants because the Giants are just so bottom of the barrel. And when you're squeaking by them, and you're needing them to have about 15 penalties too to do it. There's a lot of things that make you look at it and go, okay, we have a lot to clean up here. Either way, 1-1, the Bears are 0-2 and they don't look good and you have them next week. So you get the win, you move on, and you worry about that later. I don't know how you feel about how everything went down at the end there. When you look at like everything in that overtime, I mean, I remember our group text from earlier today, and you kind of said, "Hey, they're gonna end up winning." But man, you said that before they had their third possession. I sure didn't think the Cowboys were going to touch it a third time.
To be honest, I just said that because because of the storyline and the plot that follows with the Cowboys in Week 1. Losing, but you feel good about it. I just felt like it was going to be the opposite, where they're going to win and you don't feel great about it. But yeah, the end of that overtime was really weird. And I think if Russell Wilson doesn't throw a Hail Mary weird pass that he didn't have to, that got picked off, I think we're spending a lot of time on this podcast today questioning should they have gone for it because at the end they're on their second drive, because punting in that situation on 4th and short felt like you're conceding a tie
Yeah.
in some ways. And so I think that, if the game does end in a tie, or after you've already seen Russell Wilson launch bomb after bomb to his wide receivers, if he does another one of those, I think we're questioning that 4th down call a lot more than we are right now, because, it kind of didn't matter. I also joked, I think I posted this on Twitter, but I joked that, if John Foster was here, that would have been a Brian Anger launching at C.J. Goodwin fake punt there at the end, but not the case.
We would have at least some sort of fake through 2 games. We would have at least had something like that. And I should give Kent credit too on our group text because he called it. This is at the end of regulation, after the big bomb to Neighbors to put the Giants up 37-34. 25 seconds left, and I think we were all kind of in the boat of, hey, it doesn't take much to get in Brandon Aubrey's range. But Kent said, "Yep, they're just gonna hit Jake Ferguson over the middle to get him in the range." And sure enough, there we go.
Yeah, I would have triple covered Jake Ferguson.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
well, I was gonna say Brandon Aubrey's contract negotiations are really looking good right now.
maybe that's where I was going next too. Because if we're talking about the positives, dude, it's insane. I mean, these kicks are not like sneaking in or anything.
Oh.
These are good from a lot deeper. He can hit it from wherever on the field, left hash, right hash, dead middle. It doesn't matter. He is automatic. This is the best I've ever seen a kicker perform in football in my life. And I don't feel like I'm being hyperbolic. I watched Dan Bailey's entire career from start to finish, and he was phenomenal at the top of his game, but he never had the range. Like, I felt like Dan Bailey had the accuracy, but I remember kicks falling short every now and then. But this is crazy. That was a 64-yarder that would have been good from deeper, just in terms of the distance it had. And so, he's incredible.
It's good when you watch that one from 64. It's good, and you always do the thing like, oh, it would have been good from 70, blah blah blah. Going back to what we were talking about a second ago, 4th and 5 on the Cowboys' second possession. in overtime, and where Tolbert makes the catch there, and then he's tackled to 4th and 5. And doing the math, that would have been a 74-yard field goal attempt. And look, absolutely with the crowd and the situation, and you're giving the Giants great field position if you miss. But I don't think it's crazy to think that he could make it from 74. I know that seems nuts, but I think it would be very close. Not likely. The probability of him making that is not good, but there was a point. Now I'm going to be proving wrong. But when you're asking yourself, would you rather punt it back to them or try a 74-yarder? Like, the smart conservative thing to do is absolutely to punt. But I had a little bit of wild hair going, man, let it ride on this dude. He's awesome.
In overtime, right? So
yeah,
for me, I think if I'm listing out my scenarios that I would have done, and you're right, this sounds absolutely crazy. My number one thing, I would have went for it on 4th down. Number 2, I would have tried the field goal, and number 3, I would have punt. That's just the confidence that I have in Brandon Aubrey, and also at that point, I don't know, like I felt like it was most likely if you punt that you're going to tie. I didn't have Russell Wilson launching that pass that Donovan Wilson picked off in the cards. I thought at best the scenario is that you're going to tie. So hey, I'm not a head coach, and that's probably why. And that's good call, I guess. It ended up working out for the Cowboys. But yeah, Aubrey is an absolute weapon, and I just it's amusing to watch how he does all of this mentally. I know the leg takes all the attention, but I heard him on the Dumb Zone with Dan Jake recently. I think it was last week, and they asked him about the whole like icing the kicker and all that kind of stuff, and he said he likes it. He said he likes getting that a little bit of extra time. It doesn't faze him. It doesn't bother him. And to be fair, I think any kicker would say that publicly, just because you don't want to expose yourself in that case. But if you watch his kicks, like, you actually can see it. There's nothing that shakes him in that. And that's why, I think it was after the game, I saw a video of reporters that were waiting in the tunnel. And I think it was James Houston who was just talking about how he has ice in his veins. And that's just where we are with that kicker, man. He's phenomenal.
He said we get past the 50, we're good. I was like, yeah, I think if you get past your own 40, you're kind of good. I mean, it's insane. Glad you have him. That's how you get a win. There you go. Good kicker stuff. What'd you think of Dak today? Let me give you the line. I've got it in front of me. 38 of 52 for 361 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Didn't really know what was going on that interception. How'd you feel about Dak today?
To be honest, I thought he had a better game in week 1. Just overall watching him, but yeah, I mean, he came up in the big moments when you needed him to. I thought that, like, more than the interception, which I agree with you. I don't know about that, but the sack at the end, you just you hope that in that situation you're doing something where you're getting rid of the ball. It's an incomplete pass. I'm talking about the sack in overtime that could have been the difference in the game. So yeah, there was one play early on when he started running where I felt like I was watching Peyton Manning try to run the ball. And then a later run he had, I think it was after the Pickens completion, where he looked a little more athletic and looked a little more warmed up. So I feel like he's using his legs like a bare minimum, and that's fine. I understand that. He's not that athlete that he used to be with his legs. But overall, I thought Dak had a decent game. Decent is underselling it. I thought he had a very good game. I just think there's a couple of plays where I'm sure he would like to have back, and I guess that goes for every game.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, if you for anyone like who didn't watch the game, who ends up like box score searching this thing, like, Russell Wilson's numbers are going to look good, man. Russell Wilson made 2 really bad plays in overtime in 2 different possessions. I mean, the play, they had 2nd and 3, I believe, in their first possession of overtime, and he kind of accidentally threw the ball backwards and set up a 3rd and 17, and the Cowboys were able to get through that and get the ball back. But then when they gave it back, that interception too just felt like a terrible decision by Russ. Meanwhile, Dak, even though it wasn't all great and he was under duress a little bit, especially, Cooper Beebe goes out, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to monitor. He definitely did not look great hobbling into the locker room. Uh, but Dak, in the clutch, making that last field goal a little bit easier for Brandon Aubrey, that's huge, using the legs when needed. And you see how much George Pickens can change things to this offense when it's really needed. That guy was Jalen Tolbert last year, and it's just like a big difference. So I think that's a huge part of this thing. I think when I think of this game, I do think Shoddy said it best a little bit earlier today when he was asked about it, and basically he just he said, yeah, he talked very highly about the win, but then he said, yeah, but I also think we did some stupid shit tonight. And yeah, that's kind of this game. And when you're squeaking by the Giants, yeah, you're not feeling great about that. But I walk away from here and just go, you know what? 1-1 on to the Bears. We have to be 2-2 when we get out of September. And that was going to be a hard thing to do if you dropped this one today at home.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Packers game is, the schedule sets up well to kind of understand where the Cowboys are going into October, where you had the big test right up front. You have a couple of warm-up games in the middle with the Giants and the Bears. And then I think the Packers is the Cowboys' early season Super Bowl. I think that's where we kind of get an understanding where they're at, especially with obviously Mike on the other part, which, I mean, God, on Thursday night, I feel like he played one of his top 3 to 5 games in the NFL. So Micah's kind of going to be rounding into form there as well. So I agree with you. I think the Cowboys are in a fine place. If this game happened in late October, November, my concern for the Cowboys would be a lot higher. But in an era where guys don't play in the preseason, September football, as Mike McCarthy always told us, is definitely different than anything else. I do think they're working out a lot of things, but the offense to me is fine. Last week, the offense was going to be enough if CeeDee Lamb catches a few passes. This week they put up 40. To me, it's about the defense, and the defense has to be better. Deron Bland not being there, sure, he's going to come back, and that'll help a little bit, but that's about it. I mean, Overshown's not coming back anytime soon right now. That's going to be at least a few weeks out. So I think, it's fine, but the defense has to figure it out.
Yeah, and this is kind of what we knew, too, even going into the year. Like, the offense is going to have to go find a way to win some of these games. And the defense, hey, to their credit, they made 2 stops in overtime that you had to have. Even though I don't know how much the defense gets total credit for Russell Wilson just blindly throwing a bomb and Malik Neighbors running the wrong route. Even on the one before that on 3rd and 17, Wan'Dale Robinson quits running. The deep touchdown with under 30 seconds left is a little it's disgusting, honestly. And that's where I think my biggest concern is, like, I wish it was something you could go, okay, well, that's today and we can wash that off. I mean, I have been on board with the Eberflus as a defensive coordinator like hiring, because he was a good defensive coordinator with the Colts. And like, I think there was a lot of like good things to see there, but like the amount, and maybe we're just setting this up. It's a long season. We're setting up tendencies and things like that. But the amount that they've just said, we're dropping into zone and you can have what you want, is very frustrating, because you just can't give teams 5, 7, 8 yards anytime they want it. And that's been happening. So I that's the big fear, is like, that's some philosophical thing that we can't get out of,
As Ken brings up a good point here in our chat right now, like Jerry Jones did say after the game that they have signed Jadeveon Clowney, and I think it's a good move. I'm interested to see, what the final terms and what the contract and all that looks like. But just from a talent perspective, that is a good move that's going to help them in their rotation. So I have no issues with that. I think that's going to be great. In terms of improving the defense a little bit. Also, I do want to give a shout out to Kenneth Murray, who had a really bad game in week 1, and I thought he was better in week 2. So Kenneth Murray was better. Really, it was a lot on the secondary, and the secondary was in a makeshift situation right now without Deron Bland. So there's that as well.
Yeah, when Reddy Stewart's playing, you're kind of like, okay, that's that's a guy, that's definitely a guy. Also, I guess this is the part of the show where we get our unsung heroes of the night then. I will like to give a little credit to Solomon Thomas. I get a little, the Solomon Thomas series happened where he made 2 plays and then put pressure on Russell Wilson as they were trying to convert on a 4th down to Scattaboo and, kind of hurried the throw a little bit. Solomon Thomas right there stepping up a little bit. Didn't hear much from Marshawn Neal and didn't hear much from Dante Fowler, some guys who played the other day. I think that's another thing about this game. It's like you're at home. The Giants, as bad as they've looked and knowing the problems they've had, but you also had 3 extra days. That's where you're kind of like, you can really start to poke holes in this, and it's not a hard thing to do. But I'm trying to stay positive about things in life, just in general. I'm trying to, so that's how I'm rolling. 1-1, baby. Look out. The Dallas Cowboys are coming for you, NFC.
I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far quite yet until obviously I know you're joking too, but yeah, no, in terms of unsung heroes, man, there's one thing that I'm going to be monitoring a lot. This is not an unsung hero, but a situation that's unfolding for them is Cooper Beebe.
Yeah.
After the game, I mean, we saw the videos, like it's not even, I mean, he was being helped down the tunnel, and I'm going to be really curious to see what they do at center. Obviously, Brock Hoffman is going to be their next up option, but that's going to be a concern because BB has been playing really well for the past season and a couple of games through. So I'll be interested to see how they do it there.
No, I think that's a really good point. It's a very important thing too, because even like running the ball, like you want to have that cohesiveness. You're introducing a lot of new running schemes, and what you got 5 yards a pop from Javonte Williams, you're happy with that. I mean, I think one of those is the 30-yard run, which really helps to juice up those numbers a little bit. But there were a lot of times where they were staring at a 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 8 because they weren't able to do anything, in the run game. And that happens. Not a big deal, but that's also like a big work in progress with this offense and new coaches and everything that we're going through. So, that's kind of where I'm at. I was like, yes, just please don't be a major injury, and I have pretty good confidence in Brock Hoffman to hold it down for a little bit, but I think getting those guys playing together, getting Tyler Smith signed earlier in the week. I mean, this is all good stuff, I think. This is all like building towards something, and that's where you can look at those draft picks that you're going to be getting for Micah, and you really can start to see, some type of vision. I do really enjoy that. Congrats to Brian Schottenheimer too on his first head coaching victory. Not easy, obviously he knows that, but that's always something we should all stop and celebrate. So, yeah. I would, so is there anything else, closing thoughts? And then we'll get our thoughts, from John. John obviously still grinding away out at AT&T Stadium as he always does. I'm sure we'll get him. He's going to shoot a little video for us, and we'll get his thoughts. So, what was your final takeaway here, Saad?
I'm curious to see how they are against the Bears, because it's really hard with the sample size that we kind of are with early in the season. I thought the game was overall, it was fine. By the way, I mentioned John Foster earlier. He deserves a lot of credit, man, for discovering Brandon Aubrey, because I mean, for everything we're talking about, Brandon Aubrey's not here if John Fossil wasn't here while as his Cowboys special teams coordinator. So shout out to John Fossil for that too, because yeah, I mean, he's the one that kind of discovered him. And I liked your tweet about whatever you said about, you don't need to draft a kicker, you just gotta find a soccer player with a software engineering degree.
Yeah.
And yeah,
that's the route. The 49ers learned the hard way. They just cut Jake Moody and, had to go sign Eddie Pinheiro. Hey, we've been here in that weird, the kicking abyss. You don't want to be there. Yeah. You got a guy and he's about to get paid. So that's pretty great.
Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, my final takeaway would just be that Dak looks in a groove right now overall. And that's probably the most important thing with the most important player on the team. As long as Dak keeps looking like this, all the other things that we're talking about in terms of the defense needing to improve and, whatever other kinks they need to work out, that you can have patience with that. If Dak was not playing well right now, I think there'd be a much bigger panic about what's going on and what the Cowboys season holds. But with Dak playing the way he is right now, I think that holds over for whatever they have going on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's enough there top loaded. Dak, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and whatever you're doing with the running. And this is what we talked about like all the time. Offense, carry the load a little bit. Defense, figure it out. Get healthy. All that stuff. Just maybe don't make it that easy to run down the field. That's all we're asking. That's all we're asking. Well, Kent, do you have a final thought that you'd like to share with us before we hand it over to John?
Reminded me a little bit of the Broncos Cowboys game back in the day. Remember?
Oh,
Peyton
yeah.
Manning. It's kind of a noon game.
Yeah.
A shootout game, and Romo threw a pick at the end, and that's what the difference was. So Russell Wilson Romo'd the ending.
You know, I know it's weird because it was such an ugly first quarter, and it was 13-10 at halftime. And really, once the Giants finally decided, you know what, we're just about to just play YOLO ball and really start slinging it down the field, you start to see, okay, well, this could definitely turn into a high-scoring affair really quick, and it did. But I mean, the way that this game started and ended, I'm talking the fourth quarter, is really just insane. It'll be fun to go rewatch all that too. That first drive is it's horrible football. There's insane behavior happening from a player in 21 plays. You're sitting there going, okay, man, the Giants are struggling to move the ball. They're shooting themselves in the foot every time you look around, and they settled for 3. And we got the ball back with 6 minutes left. It was just in the first quarter. It was just a crazy first drive. It's insane. So, NFC East, that's how it is, wild games. Got through the first 2 of those. Let's turn our attention to the NFC North. We will be with you a little bit later in the week here on the One Star Cowboys podcast. And hope you'll join us. We're going to have a Bears preview. The Bears, well, they did not look good today either. The Detroit Lions stuck it to them today by the score of 52-21. And Caleb Williams not looking great. There's a lot going on in Chicago. I think our buddy T.C. Fleming from It's Just Banner and other things, he's a big Bears guy. We'll kind of break down the Bears with this a little bit. We'll cross that bridge when we get there in a couple days. We will leave you with the beautiful voice of Father John Machota.
That was an interesting game to cover. And I say that because if I had just watched it on TV and wrote about it off of that, I think I would have ripped the team for even having a close win against the Giants. I think that says a lot about my respect for this Giants team. I don't think they're very good. I think that they will be a team drafting in the top 5. There's not much about this team that looks any different than what the Giants have been for most of the last 7-8 years. I understand that Russell Wilson had a great game, but I think the Cowboys had a lot to do with that in the way that they didn't get any pressure on him and how poorly the secondary played with their zone coverage. And so there's a lot of issues there. But then when you're standing outside the locker room and you see how excited the players are, how excited Brian Schottenheimer is, and just hearing how loud the locker room was before we were able to go in, it's tough to sit there and not think that this doesn't mean anything to this team. And I say that because maybe it's something that they can use as a rallying point, I guess, with the way that they fought back in a game that they had multiple ways that they had really blown the thing. And I think that there were several times where it just looked like it was over and that they were going to suffer another loss. And they lose that game. And then I'm definitely thinking, okay, this is probably a 4-win team, 5-win team at best. And it still might be. I'm not saying that that's completely out of the question. But the fighting back, I do think there's something to be said for that. And then obviously after the game, when we're just talking to Jerry Jones and he's asked a question about the pass rush and not getting home, he just decides to offer up that they're signing Jadeveon Clowney. So that will help the pass rush for sure. I have a lot of questions about the back end of the defense, especially without Deron Bland, probably for at least another week. There were just too many big plays. And I get Malik Neighbors is an outstanding receiver, and he might end up being one of the best in the near future in the league. You just can't give up some of those big plays. You can't be letting those big play receivers get behind you like that. And so adjustments definitely have to be made on defense. But to be 1-1 right now, I'd say that the team has a little bit more hope. I still have major questions when anybody talks about a potential playoff type team. But this is, to me, a must-win type game if you have any hopes of being a playoff team. And for Dak Prescott after the game to even acknowledge that he felt it was a must-win game for them, that's pretty interesting because it's only week 2. But you just look at the rest of their schedule, and there's just a lot of things that make you think, if you can't beat that Giants team at home, how are you going to have any hope against, I mean, forget the teams later in the year when they have that brutal stretch in November and December, but just even beating like Denver or the Raiders, or heck, even next week against the Bears. But you fight back, you win this game, maybe that carries over. Chicago now coming off of a blowout loss, they're 0-2. You know, Matt Eberflus going against his old team. Maybe you get something going there. Next thing you know, you're 2-1. You get this kind of going in a positive direction. Who knows what can build off of that? But I will say that seeing the behind the scenes of it, not just at training camp, but also since they've returned here to Dallas, and then today in the locker room, like these guys genuinely like Brian Schottenheimer. They like playing for Schottenheimer. I do think that there could be a little bit of a rallying behind him. He does seem like a very player's coach that they enjoy playing for him. So I think that's a positive. But of course, you know, you got to deliver on the field. You got to have more early involvement, I feel like, from CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I understand they only had a handful of plays in the first quarter, but even in only a handful of offensive plays, at least 2 of those have to be targets to George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. He's by far your 2 best offensive players. And so they both had moments where they showed the players that they are and showed what this offense could be when both of those guys are clicking. Now, of course, you're going to have some good health. You lose Cooper Beebe today. You lose Kevontae Turpin. It doesn't sound like Turpin is going to be anything long-term. It sounds like he got some pretty good news off of the imaging that he had done later in the game, and just seeing how excited he was as the players were running back to the locker room after the game, and he was celebrating with them outside the locker room. It looks like he's in pretty good spirits. Looked like he was in pretty good shape. So I don't think that that's anything long-term. Cooper Beebe is a different one. He needed to be helped to the locker room after the game and was on crutches. And so I think that there's going to need to be a little bit more imaging and a little bit more work done there to find out, you know, how serious that injury is. Jerry Jones didn't sound too concerned in terms of it being a major long-term where, you know, potentially, out for, 4, 5, 6 games or more. It doesn't sound like it's something like that, but we'll see. We'll find out more on Monday. But if this team is able to stay healthy, adding Clowney, maybe they start getting something going and they can build off of that. And who knows where things go from there. But yeah, the health is a key thing because I don't know if they could lose some of their top players and be able to overcome that. So, like I said, the way I went down to the locker room, watching the end of the game, I was ready to be extremely critical, and I understand fans that are extremely critical of watching that game, especially if you don't have very much respect for the New York Giants or what you think they will be. I totally understand how you want to rip this team and think they're going to be awful and might only win 3 or 4 games, and you might be right. I'm not fighting you on that. I'm just saying, let's let this thing play out a few more weeks before it gets to doom and gloom. Let's see if they can build off of this game, maybe turn it into something positive. Maybe they get on a hot streak. I also wanted to add something about Brandon Aubrey. Almost forgot. Need to include that. No chance they win this game without him. I think you can say he's arguably the best kicker in the NFL. I think it's pretty clear just how effortless it looks for him to convert from 60 plus. It's insane in big moments. Obviously, it helps to be inside AT&T Stadium, but it's easy to overlook how great he is, and he just makes it look effortless. And you can take him for granted, but the Cowboys definitely shouldn't. To me, he needs to be the next guy up, getting a contract done. They've done a good job with those recently. Obviously, Bland and Jake Ferguson and Lipke, Kevontae Turpin, Tyler Smith. That's they're taking care of business in that way, and that's great. But Aubrey needs to be next.
So for Saad Yousuf, go follow him on X and see his work over at The Athletic. For Kent Garrison, who's also huge in that Mad About Movies podcast universe, go check that out. I'm Kevin Turner on the One Star Cowboys podcast.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.